So this week on Behind the Tweet, I'm joined by Neera. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry, Tanden. And Neera, I know you've been talking a lot about face masks. So my first question to you is, why aren't we talking about this? One of the unintended benefits of wearing a face mask is when I'm in my car waiting to pick up my kids, I can lip sync to the Spice Girls and tell you what I really, really want. How come Dr. Fauci isn't talking about this? Where's the outrage?
Maybe because no one wants that visual image.
You've been talking to my kids, I can see.
I think this might be one of the things, that people aren't really examining. You can wear a face mask and not have to wear so much makeup. You can wear a face mask and wear a beard that no one else is subjected to. You could do a lot of things with a face mask, and probably the world is much better off, including your lip syncing. But there also are benefits like saving people's lives. So I think of that as a twofer, not being subject to other people's lip syncing and also saving lives across the country. So
Yeah,
I think that even maybe that's even. Maybe it's a little bit more for the lives.
I don't know. Saving lives, lip syncing, not embarrassing your children. It's kind of a toss up, right?
Yeah.
I think you could almost argue that they're one and the same.
Yes, maybe your strategy will save millions of more lives. Think of it that way.
So Neera, one of the questions I want to ask you is about this 2019 interview you did with the New York Times. I don't want to ask you about the substance of the interview, but having your mother interviewed as a child of an immigrant, I got to tell you, if I hear from my mother one more time, Neera got her mom in the Times, how come you can't be on Joe Rogan? I'm going to cry. How do we go into the Biden administration and say,
she could talk to my mother, and then she'll probably really be dissuaded from having that happen in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's probably true.
But was super unhappy about that interview. Mortified, unhappy. She felt super tricked. So if you need my mom to talk to your mom about how she should not talk to the New York Times whenever they call, even when they try and trick her, I am happy to do that.
That actually, I will take you up on that, because I know as the children of a child of immigrants, and this is one of the challenges there's so many challenges we face, but the more consistent one is disappointing our parents. It's something that goes on, like in perpetuity. Yeah. I don't know when it ends. I'm all for diversity, and I hope that that a Biden administration would bring in the most qualified and diverse voices that we can have, and what a breath of fresh air. But I also worry about it for myself, that it's going to set the bar higher and higher. I mean, Thanksgiving is already going to be difficult enough. It's over Zoom. I don't need to hear, Ramsey from down the street, who you went to high school with, is now the Secretary of the State. How come you're still doing Zoom calls? I mean, how does the Biden administration reconcile the?
It doesn't really end, honestly. So for me, I worked for Hillary Clinton. So I was working for Hillary Clinton in the White House. This was in the late 90s. And I was getting married, and Hillary, who was First Lady at the time, very generously offered to host a wedding party for us. And it was so nice. We had this wedding party. It was in this room called the Yellow Oval, which is known as the family, family dining, family couch, really. It's a beautiful room, lovely, right in the White House mansion. So it's very, very nice. And my mom was there, and my mom's an Indian immigrant. She's had lived here decades at that point, but still had never been in any place like this in her life. We're not connected to politics. We know nothing about it. And my mom is talking to then First Lady Hillary Clinton, and Hillary says to her, you must be so proud of Neera because she's working in the White House, and my mom says to Hillary Clinton, with me right there, her friends are working at law firms, and they're making a lot more money. Okay. And then I'm mortified. It's this thing is moving in slow motion. It's and then Hillary feels like a little, guilty. So she says, but Neera is helping make laws. She's drafting laws. And, I wasn't drafting laws, actually. I was advising, but I wasn't driving laws, but now Hillary feels guilty about it, so she's like overselling. And then my mother follows up by saying, "Well, some of her friends are making partner," and I was like, "Oh my god." What was so funny about that is for months afterwards, then actually Hillary ran for Senate and ended up in New York working for her Senate campaign. But she was like, she called me a few times and was like, "Are you doing okay? Is the salary enough?" So it's its own way, even though it was like totally mortifying in like every way, and perfect Indian mom story there.
Yeah.
It was it worked out there.
That's perfect. I mean, that's exactly, I think for many people, there's a lot of downsides to, challenges to being a person of color. But I think, again, the consistent one is always like underwhelming your parents. Like, the joke I always make, I was a double agent. And when I told my parents, the joke I always make is like, they were like, "Well, why couldn't you be a triple agent? Like, why couldn't you go one better?" And it's just this constant thing. If the Biden administration is listening, the only thing I would say is absolutely diversity, but be gentle. I mean, you're going to set the bar so much higher for the rest of us.
What are you doing at the Biden administration? It doesn't exist yet.
I know, but when it does, when there's, if it does come to pass, knock on wood, right? Like I won't.
Yeah, I'm knocking on wood. Everyone who's listening, knock on wood. I don't know what's going on over here. I don't sanction it. There's a big election. To all work really hard. Cannot take a single vote for granted. I mean, anyway.
Well, one of the things, Neera, that I hear a lot from a minority of Democrats is that under no condition will they vote for Biden. And my question to you is, are they Democrats? I mean, if you're a Democrat, are you really someone who should not vote for Biden? I mean, you're someone who should look for an alternate candidate. We saw what happened with 2016. Yeah. What would you want to say to someone like that?
I know that a lot of people really just want to shake people like this, but I feel like it, and sometimes I do too. But let me try to speak through my rage and say something that will make some sense. But I honestly think that there are people who didn't understand how bad it would be, but you don't have that excuse. So if you choose not to vote, or you choose to vote third party, or you choose to do anything other than vote for Joe Biden in November, the reality of this vote is that you are voting for a president who is killing people in a pandemic through his incompetence. You are then voting for, you may tell yourself you're not voting for, but you are really voting for a person who put children in cages. And the whole host of disasters, you're voting for a president who used the military to fire on peaceful protesters through, using, basically Gestapo tactics. So, we can laugh about it, we can joke about it, but unless you vote for Joe Biden, you own what happens post-November. A lot of people can say they didn't know what would happen last time. You won't have that excuse, because you have a record of a man who is the most divisive president that I have seen in my lifetime, and perhaps since the founding, but definitely, he had pretty terrible presidents in the early 1800s. So, well, at least in the last 100 years.
This is a scientific poll, but 9 out of 10 clowns agree that voting for Trump isn't funny. I think the 10th clown may have been a Kushner, so I don't know that counts. No, there really isn't anything funny about voting for Trump. I think we can scientifically say that's the case.
It is not. It would not be funny. It'd be terrible. You'd feel guilty the rest of your life. You wouldn't be able to tell your grandkids that you did it, because they'd look at you like you were insane. So, just don't do it. Just don't do it. All fair.
one of the big questions there people have is the Biden VP pick. Now, personally, I would like to see someone like Cisco who could unite the East and West Coast rap world and finally put to bed the East and West Coast rap battles that have been going on. But in all seriousness, who do you see and who would you want to see as Biden's pick?
I have like no idea. I mean, people ask me this question. I don't know who he's going to pick. I honestly, like, just with 1,000% candor, I only care about someone who helps him win, who'd be a good president. But all
so who do you think helps
him
really win, though? Like, what characteristic, even if it's not a person, what traits do you have?
I would be excited about a candidate who adds to either, some sense of ideological diversity or a sense of racial diversity or racial diversity itself. I mean, I do think it's important for the vice president to kind of reach out to different parts of the party. And so I don't have a candidate. And honestly, I fangirl a lot of these candidates. I love Kamala. I love Elizabeth Warren. I've worked with them. They're fantastic. I think Val Demings will be an amazing superstar. I am one of the biggest fans in the world of Stacey Abrams. I think I consider her a good friend. And I think she's a rock star. So, I could just repeat praise for several different women in contention. Tammy Duckworth is an amazing leader. We've worked with her on veterans issues and disability issues. I think people getting to know her would be fantastic. So, we have the great thing in the Democratic Party is that we have a wide bench of women leaders, diverse women leaders from all over the country. That's something we should really be proud of. And I hope there are a lot of great women. And if, for the women who aren't picked as vice president, I hope there will be positions in the cabinet, in the government for them. I think would be super exciting.
Neera, here's my next question. It's a stumper. Marry Trump. That's the entire question. Go. What do you think?
I have to say, I found out she followed me on Twitter. Like
that's so exciting.
One of her tweets, and then I saw that she followed me. I have to say, I was so excited. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'm excited that her book is doing well. I've ordered the book, so I'm thrilled about that. But I also just really want to say, I really think she puts the entire Republican Party to shame. This is not easy for her. She's talking about a family member. It's, deeply personal. She's willing to stand up and do this because she really believes he should not be reelected because he's a danger from what she knows personally. And at considerable cost. And Republican senators, members of Congress say things behind his back, but then, vote with him, ensure that they, go along with him. I mean, the truth of this presidency is he gets away with so many things because his own party won't hold him accountable. And the founding fathers of this country thought separation of powers would be enough, but separation of powers isn't working when you have a Senate filled with people willing to kowtow to their party leader. And that has been the essential problem. And my hat's off to her for being willing to stand up where so many Republican men and women weren't willing to.
I'm just happy that there's a Trump that's actually written a book.
There will be more. I mean, they won't write it.
But actually writing it themselves.
I'm still waiting. Like Ivanka's memoirs. I'm looking forward to those memoirs.
What do you think happens to by the way, what do you think happens to the Trumps, whether it's hopefully 2021, but at some point they're going to be out of office. Do you think they're actually shunned when they return back to the civilian world?
I mean, it really depends on what happens with the election. I mean, if it's a real nail biter, my worry is that we'll have like Donald Trump Jr. running for office someplace and actually win. I mean, this could be a metastasizing kind of cancer, to be honest,
Oh gosh.
of family members running. On the other hand, if it's what I hope it will be, a kind of historic landslide loss, then I hope that it's not just Trump who loses, but Trumpism. Trump family members can't run for office. People people look at it and say, Republicans look at it and say, we need to go in a different direction. That is my, deepest hope. But I'm also willing to campaign against Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka if I need to.
So,
I
all
am
right.
so looking forward to, I just need to say, I'm so looking forward to Donald Trump being a memory. This is like the thing I'm most excited about. This is there will be one day where I won't think about Donald Trump and what he's doing to the country and how he's destroying it.
Let's take that theme for a second. So let's say Biden wins January 21st, 2021. What do you think the news cycle looks like? Is it kittens and puppies walking kindergartners to school? What is it?
I imagine there might be some news on how he's reversing everything. But, I actually, I think what would be great is like, I think millions of Americans can wake up and not check their phones for what kind of crazy just happened. I mean, I look forward to having like normal sleep and not worrying when I wake up and thinking about what crazy things just happened and actually going the whole day, hours at a time, not having to check your phone for the news or because like there'll be time. This is my thought. If I was running for president, my whole campaign would have been, when I'm president, I'm only going to make news between 10 and 5, unless it's an emergency.
Eastern or Pacific, because that matters.
Not really, it'd be basically like 10 and 5 Eastern, okay?
Yeah.
Just do that. And just basically say, and the rest of the time, you get to live your life. Like, you don't need to worry. In the evening, if you hear from me, it's a true national emergency. And like, again, America can go back to being normal. And like, not normal, like everything is normal again, but like, you don't have to be hyper vigilant for every crazy thing that comes out of my mouth. I thought it was a good motto. A good motto.
That is a good motto. Vote for Neera. She'll let you'll have the weekends off.
And your evenings.
And
you have evenings, right. Early mornings. Like, just think about that. That's amazing.
I think even Rachel Maddow would get behind that. You've known Hillary Clinton for a long time. Mm-hmm. Do you think that if Biden is elected, does she come into the administration? Is there any chance that she would step back into public service?
That's a great question. I don't really know. I mean, I'll say for me, I hope so. I mean, I think Hillary is amongst, I mean, I've really had a great privilege to work with many fantastic leaders. And Hillary is such a great leader in a crisis. I mean, I just think about how she would have handled the coronavirus if she had been president, and like actually realized that she needs to get testing going very quickly, and that was the only way to control an outbreak, so we'd never be in this nightmare. But she's just, I mean, I think on a whole range of issues, she's super smart, super capable, really connects things together, has a wealth of experiences, is really open to learning from what states are doing, from what countries are doing. I mean, she's a very good leader in difficult times. So I hope so. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she really wants to go back into service, but I hope she does.
Who could blame her? But I'm sure that a lot of people would say we need her, right?
Yeah, no, it's an all hands on deck situation at this point.
Impeach, imprison, vaccinate. The CEO of Goya, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, again. And if you don't want to answer that, which is totally fair, a legitimate question here, I think, is
I'm gonna avoid that one and just move on to the next thing.
It's a fair point. I totally appreciate that. But all joking aside, the CEO of Goya, I mean, do you have any thoughts for other CEOs that may be thinking of doing sort of a death embrace of President Trump, this full-throated endorsement? Is that a wise move?
I think it's not a wise move, I guess I'd say.
I'm trying to be objective.
If you have a brand that you would like to protect, maybe you shouldn't on your own connect it to one of the most divisive people in the country and who has a super negative approval rating. I mean, this is like, I don't know if Goya Brands has a board or some group of people that can intervene to tell them that this is a colossal mistake. And it's a colossal mistake for a very simple reason, which is that Trump is the hallmark of his presidency is to pit people against each other, to divide people against each other. And thankfully, a majority of the country is repudiating that, really is actually moving in a different direction. And I think like it's bad for a brand to be associated with essentially a super negative trend line. And that is what Donald Trump is right now, a very negative trend line. His support is shrinking. It's not growing. His approval rating is heading into the 30s, much faster than going into the 50s. So, I mean, I'm not a marketing genius or anything, but it strikes me that that is a bad marketing strategy for a company.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be a marketing genius to figure out that it might impact your bottom line. Zombie apocalypse. Who wins, a Bernie bro or an incel? And again,
I am really trying to I'm trying to unify with the Bernie bros. Like we all have something for this. I will say seriously, sometimes I feel like perhaps they're not my biggest fans, but to say seriously, I've been really honestly impressed with how much Bernie Sanders is doing to unify the party.
Yes.
And some people complain he didn't do as much last time, but honestly, like this election is in front of us. It matters a lot about how he acts now, and he's been great in unifying the party. And I take my hat off to him. And actually, the vast majority of Sanders supporters are endorsing Biden, and the few people who aren't on Twitter are really a minority. So I'm happy about that. I'm really pleased with.
Obviously, when it comes to the platforms, I think that under the Trump administration, one of the things that's been heralded is sort of this unadulterated, sort of unfiltered misogyny and racism. Do you think that when Trump leaves, whether it's 2021 or 2024, I mean, can we claw that back? Have we opened the gate here, and there's no going back, or do you think we actually can move that, move forward in terms of tackling that racism, misogyny?
I'm optimistic about. I mean, American history is definitely a history of taking two steps forward and one step back on race relations and so many other issues. I mean, that happened during Reconstruction, and we took many times one and almost two steps back, and that is our history. So I'm hopeful. I mean, I think to be optimistic for a minute, the largest scale protests for the rights of women, the largest scale protests for the rights of Black people, the largest scale social protests in our history have taken place over the last 3.5 years. I do not think that's an accident. I think people are mobilizing in opposition to Trumpism, to the divisiveness, and racism and misogyny, pretty open racism and misogyny. And so I'm hopeful. I don't think it will solve our problems, but I do think more people are open to more structural changes to address the the deeply embedded problems of racism in our society and misogyny in our society, and both exist. And I'm hopeful. I don't know. I think the future will tell us, but I'm excited that we've seen so many multi-generational, multiracial protests for civil rights in this moment.